Hello and welcome to week 11 out of 20 of building the healthiest version of me. Now we are playing a little bit of catch up with content because when did it all start going wrong? I went to Paris and hadn't filmed this video yet, so it's just been on a spiral. This one's feeling mouthy, great. It's just been spiraling with content at the minute and I'm just playing catch up. So apologies about that, but I had a great time in Paris. So this week's reel is actually pre-Paris and is all around getting back into training after having a little bit of time off. And we are starting a new block in the reel and have a couple of new focus points. So I am going to chat about my bench and about my deadlifts and about trusting the process and about how to best manage getting back into training after having some time off. So I now have hopefully a comp date in mind, depending if I get a spot or not. And that basically means that I've got kind of a goal date for where I want my lifts, where I want to be happy with my lifts by that point. I'm feeling confident to pull some big numbers. So that's definitely helped in my current motivation with training and feeling kind of inspired to really knuckle down on form. So just before I took some time off of training, I sent through some form analysis to Callum, my coach, to see where I can improve. We have decided that squats are pretty much where we want them to be. There is one focus point and that is shrugging to brace, and I'm trying my best. So that is my focus point for squats. For bench press, we have widened my grip slightly and hopefully that is going to provide a little bit better stability and just kind of give the necessary range of motion. Now, first off, I was training in several gyms and the bars were all different and it took a bit to just find what grip I'm trying to work with. That was kind of the first obstacle. The second thing was where my grip's a little bit wider, that now changes the height of the bar when where I need the height of the bar to be. And I'm just struggling with the fact that benches are made for men. Because the top hook is way too tall, and then the second one is way too short, so I'm basically having to do half of a rep to get the bar up and out to start my set, and it's just taking some playing around with. This week actually in particular, I used the lower rack and think I just kind of twinged something slightly trying to get the bar out on my top set, which was frustrating. So I'm just playing around with that, and I think I'm gonna have to start benching in a squat rack so that I can adjust the height of the bar to exactly where I need. So they've kind of been the struggles. The other thing I have been doing, well, I now understand why people chalk their backs for bench press. I've seen it at comps and kind of been yeah, I guess you could maybe slide off the bench, but I get it now. Now that I have widened my grip, I'm really focusing on getting kind of the top of my traps and shoulders wedged into the bench. And once especially if I'm doing more than one rep, it's really hard to not slip on the bench. I don't know how I haven't noticed that before. So I've been pestering people around my session to, when I say that, I don't mean random members, I mean other PTs. That maybe sounds a bit strange, but I've just been asking PTs around me to chalk my back so that I can get a really nice wedge under the bar. And the first week or two have just been kind of overcoming that change in form and really working out what it is that I need to be doing. But slowly but surely, I think we're finding our feet with that, and hopefully the numbers will now start correlating with the right RPs as I'm getting more confident with the form. I think that is everything around bench press. And then for my deadlifts, originally I was, how was I setting up? I was walking up to it so that my shins were touching the bar. Then I was wedging my hips under and getting into position, and then I was pulling the slack and pushing through my heels to lift. Now we are about an inch away from the bar. We are bending over and pulling the slack, wedging hips in and trying not to roll the bar forward as I do that, and then pushing through, keeping tension the entire time. And it's basically a reversal of my setup, so I'm just really having to focus on that and make sure that I'm doing things in the right order. I'm also just still trying to work out my hip position so that 1, the bar doesn't roll, and 2, I'm kind of pulling from where I should be, and that is just taking, again, its time to feel how it should. So at the bottom of my caption in this reel, I basically said, like, the one thing, if you take anything away from that reel, is to take away the fact that sometimes you really do just have to trust the process and trust your coach, and progress will come. And I do just want to kind of delve into that. I also wrote a story on it before I went to Paris, when I was kind of testing out bench and the new grip that I was doing. But I think the best way to explain this is so in the last block, before I made these changes, I was feeling really confident with my lifts. I knew my setups exactly, I knew what I was doing, everything felt like it was falling into place and just doing what it should be doing. And I think I said to one of my clients, like, if someone told me I had to compete tomorrow, like, I would feel up for it, and like everything is dialed in and exactly where it should be. That doesn't necessarily mean I was doing it right, and the changes that we've only made them to try and improve my lifts. There's no other reason to change something. Don't fix something that's not broke, essentially. And even though I was doing really well with what I was doing, these slight changes are hopefully going to have a good like layover into progressing and improving my lifting. So that is the reason we're doing it. And I think I do really have to remind myself, obviously Callum knows what he's doing and I trust him completely, and if he's told me to make these changes, there is a reason for it. And then it's just trusting the process, that once I've learned how to kind of perform the changes and nail the lifts with these new focus points, then the benefit will kind of come from that, but it's not going to happen like that. And I am a pretty impatient person, so after the first time of trying it, if it's not perfect, I'm like, well, this is stupid. Like, my numbers are now going down because I don't feel confident in my lifts and I don't know what I'm doing and everything feels weird. But that is the point, and that is what learning is about, and that happens throughout your kind of lifting journey. There's always ways to improve and progress, and that is what we're working on, and is something that I just need to get used to and accept if I want to keep doing better. So obviously this reel is from a couple of weeks ago, but now I'm actually coming up to the end of the blog, and Still playing around, but hopefully in the next block things will start to feel a little bit more kind of normal, and like I kind of know what I'm doing and aiming for, and then we can start looking at numbers again being where they should be. And by the time comp comes around, I will have forgotten what I was doing before anyway, because this will all feel so normal. So that is my bench and my deadlifts, and trusting your coach and the process. And that is what this block has been about, and the start of this block is the reel that I shared. So a nice full loop for you there in explaining my current training. I kind of titled this one Getting Back Into Training because obviously I did have time off, and I would say the biggest difficulty for me getting back into training is making sure my body's recovering. So my body takes quite a toll at work to an extent. I am on my feet all day, I am lifting weights for clients and setting weights up and etc, 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 and I get a lot of steps in, and it's already kind of a physical demand on my body, and having time off of training doesn't necessarily mean that I'm resting, because I'm still doing my job. And I think for me, reintroducing training kind of, what's the right word? Starting my training again reintroduces the extra demand on my body by training, and I do really have to kind of focus on recovery. I'm really strict as best as I can be with making sure I get 8 hours rest. I really notice the difference if I don't get a good night's sleep. I also eat for my body, and that is another really important one for recovery. So I think for me, getting back into training isn't about fitting the sessions in or feeling motivated for the sessions or anything like that, because that really does come quite naturally to me, and that is part of having the job that I have, and yeah, wanting to be in the world of the gym. But for me, it is making sure that I get good recovery. So for week 1 of the block, because we were going to Paris that week, I actually had to train 3 times in a row, which I rarely do, and with that being my first week back, that was quite a lot for my body to do. But luckily it was a really light week. Yeah, luckily, because it was week 1 of the block, everything was nice and light anyway. We were really focusing on form changes, so it wasn't as much of a difficulty as it otherwise would have been. If I was coming back from 2 weeks off into like the last week of the block, which would never happen, but just hypothetically, then I would really struggle, because we're going under heavier load and that kind of thing. I block out hours in my day to make sure that I train, and because I'm working at the gym, that takes out having to travel anywhere or that kind of thing, which I know I'm really lucky to be able to do. And then the fact that I've got a potential comp date in mind is currently my motivation. I am also partly motivated by having new focus points, because I do really like to get things right, and having that to work towards definitely helps, even though there is also like the slight feeling of uncertainty and everything that I've just spoken about. But yeah, the motivation and blocking out time side of things isn't difficult for me in terms of getting back into training. It is just making sure that my body can take the load again and recover ready for the next session. So yeah, I feel like I've spoken really quickly, but that might be a super quick YouTube video. Kind of makes up for last week's one being so long. And then my next reel and YouTube video is going to be all about having some time on annual leave and off work and going to Paris and hiking the Peak District, and all of that fun stuff outside of work. So
unlock your iPhone first.
Alright, Siri. What was I saying? If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a little comment, share it if you can. And now you know exactly what I'm doing training wise. So I will see you next week, and yeah, have a great week. Bye.